Good afternoon to you. I'm Stacey Ann Providence. The C News is live. Topping the news at this time, the state's attempt to preserve the assets of CL Financial via legal application was struck down by a High Court judge late on Wednesday. The state's application to have provisional liquidators appointed to preserve the assets of CL Financial was dismissed by High Court Judge Kevin Ramcharan at the Hall of Justice following a 7-hour sitting. Justice Ramcharan refused to grant the application, stating that it was filed prematurely as the state was unable to prove that the board of directors, should its composition change following Tuesday's special meeting of shareholders of CL Financial, would move to dispose of the company's assets. Now, the government had launched action in an attempt to recover a $15 billion debt following the CLICO bailout in 2009. The state does have the option to resubmit an application. And the news that voluntary separation packages will be handed out to Flow employees is the latest sign of the troubled times in the company and, by extension, the telecommunications industry. In this report, Peter Christopher gives us further insight into the development.
On Wednesday afternoon, 100 workers at C&W Communications were offered voluntary separation packages at a staff meeting. They were given 2 weeks to consider the offer, with the knowledge that should they decline, they may soon be labeled as redundant and retrenched. The development comes after a tumultuous 2-year stretch for the company, which has seen its position as the #1 cable provider in the country severely shaken in the past year. Flow Trinidad was acquired by Liberty Global in November 2015, after that company purchased their parent company, Cable and Wireless. But since then, business has not been booming. Flow has been losing subscribers rapidly, with over 10,000 customers discontinuing their cable or internet subscriptions, sometimes both, in the past year. And the effects have been telling. In a statement on Wednesday, Managing Director of Flow Trinidad, Ian Sarau, said, "Like other companies operating in Trinidad, we have had to find ways to respond to the contracting economy, increase competition, and to ensure viability of our business in the current environment." He said, earlier this year, the company embarked on a program of cost reduction in an effort to save jobs, but has had to make the difficult decision of reducing headcount. Prior to Wednesday's meeting, Flow had reduced its security staff and reduced funding on several office items, including kitchen stocks. C News was told workers can't even get coffee at work anymore. We were also informed that they struggle to pay rent for their office at the corner of Duke Street and Shine Street facing Victoria Square. But while Flow's freefall has been significant, they aren't the only telecommunications company with recent struggles. Their rival Digicel announced in March that they would have to cut back on staff by as much as 25% in recent months, while another, Massey Communications, was sold entirely to B-Mobile in May. Peter Christopher, C News.
The Parliament is describing as erroneous, if not mischievous, recent media reports about the use of a 360-degree camera in the room at Tuesday's meeting between the Prime Minister and the opposition leader. A release from the Office of the Parliament explained the 360-degree camera was located just in front of the Prime Minister and the Leader of the Opposition to capture the greeting between the two leaders. However, it clarified that once the time for photographs had ended, the 360-degree camera, along with all other cameras in the room at the time, had been removed. The Office of the Parliament said the claim made by the media that the camera was not removed was irresponsible and sought to make a story which caused undue concern, where absolutely no story exists. The police are investigating the circumstances surrounding the death of a man along the Audrey Jeffers Highway. Officers were alerted to a body alongside the highway near the helipad at around 12:30 a.m. The man had injuries to the head and shoulder. However, officers were struggling to decipher if the man was hit by a vehicle or had been killed elsewhere and dumped at the scene. Police are also seeking to identify the man, who is of East Indian descent, approximately 5 feet 5 inches tall, and he was barefooted and shirtless. St. James Police are investigating. And this is the C News Live report at noon. Remember, you can keep up to date with all the latest news on our website at ctvtt.com, or you can check out our Facebook and Twitter pages at C News Live. Well, as promised, Public Service Association President Watson Duke staged another sit-in outside the Agriculture Development Bank of Trinidad and Tobago head office on Henry Street in Port of Spain.
Yes, we shall overcome someday. Deep in our hearts, we do believe we shall overcome some. Sing it, sing it.
This is the latest effort by the PSA president to stimulate the conversation with the Minister of Finance on wage negotiations. Mr. Duke took to Facebook to say, "We, the ADB, need equality of treatment, 14% after all workers on 2010 salaries, but paying 2017 expenses." Now, earlier this week, workers had met with the CEO concerning salary negotiations, but the PSA president admitted the final say was up to the Minister of Finance. The Port of Spain City Corporation over the weekend announced plans to rename Queen Street after Janelle Penny Commission. It started under Mayor Raymond Timke, and 2 mayors later, the recommendation was actioned to commemorate her 40th anniversary of becoming the first black woman to win the Miss Universe crown. She won it in 1977. During an exclusive interview with Good Morning Trinidad and Tobago host Verna Barth to be aired tomorrow, Ms. Commission said she was honored and grateful, but there are those who would have asked why now.
And I think perhaps maybe it's good in a sense that it opens up the whole topic of really what is our history. Because one would see, when you look at Port of Spain, you would see that the streets were named based on really who had the power and who was in charge. The streets were Spanish. The French came and they owned a lot, so some of the streets would, you know, the names were French. Then the English came in, and a lot of the streets, they stamped their by naming a lot of the streets, you know. So it's a matter of who is in power at the time. So it's history. History is about change.
And you can catch the extended interview on Good Morning Trinidad and Tobago from 6 a.m. Well, after several years of calls for such an initiative, the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service is set to launch the body-worn camera pilot project. The launch will take place at the St. Joseph Police Station tomorrow afternoon. In 2012, then Director of the Police Complaints Authority had called for police body cameras as a means to properly gauge the validity of police conduct while in the line of duty. Acting Commissioner Stephen Williams will speak at the launch. Now, earlier this year, members of the Princestown Municipal Police began using body cameras. And now for the weather for the period this afternoon and tonight. Trinidad, Tobago and the remainder of the Lesser Antilles should be generally hot and sunny, although there is a chance of the odd shower. Tonight will be mostly clear. Seas are expected to be slight to normal, while waves are expected to be up to 1.5 meters in open waters and near calm in sheltered areas. Wesley Taylor appeared in court on Wednesday charged with the murder of Kellyanne Clark. Clark, a 23-year-old mother of one, was found dead in the vicinity of the Point Fortin Hardway along Capdeville Main Road on July 11th. An autopsy revealed she had been beaten to death with a piece of wood. Taylor of Fanny Village, Point Fortin, appeared before Senior Magistrate Rajendra Rambachan in the Point Fortin Magistrates Court. The charge was laid indictably and he was not called upon to enter a plea. Taylor was convicted of rape in 2008 for a 2003 incident. The matter was adjourned to August 15th. An El Socorro man has been denied bail after appearing before a Port of Spain magistrate to answer charges of kidnapping for ransom a Chinese national employed with the Embassy of the People's Republic of China. 32-year-old Kwesi Bowen, a food vendor of Mustafa Lane, El Socorro, also faces charges of possession of a firearm and possession of ammunition arising out of the incident. He was remanded into custody for tracing. The Chinese national was kidnapped while on his way to work on July 13th near Hayes Street, St. Clair, and a ransom demand made for his release. The victim was subsequently rescued by police close to Damien Street and a suspect detained. Now, Bowen is also accused of kidnapping a 33-year-old man and stealing his vehicle and bank card on July 8th in Woodbrook. The stolen vehicle was used in the kidnapping of the Chinese national 5 days later. He is further charged with kidnapping and robbery with aggravation arising out of that incident. In other news now, the Tobago House of Assembly is moving towards implementing a policy for the use of jet skis, particularly for users of the Buku Marine Park. Although Secretary of Food Production, Forestry and Fisheries Hayden Spencer couldn't give a specific timeline for the implementation of this policy, he said many stakeholders and members of the general public would be consulted on the matter before it is institutionalized. Patricia Nicholson has the details.
Secretary Hayden Spencer said Buku has become a thriving business area, more so for tourists. But a number of jet ski-related incidents have occurred in the area and has cost the Tobago House of Assembly thousands in compensation for those injured. Because of this and other issues, the THA is looking at policies to ensure safety during jet skiing.
Some of the issues that we want to challenge is to reduce conflict, the conflict which occurs between the various users of the marine space, right? To ensure also the preservation of the ecosystem in the marine park, to provide a safe and enjoyable tourism product for Tobago.
While consultations are ongoing, it's been recommended that all jet skis must be registered and have insurance, and that they must operate within areas for jet skiing.
Clients must be briefed on the use of the safety equipment that the jet ski will be carrying out. Right? We are saying that client must not operate jet skis if they are under the influence of alcohol or other drugs. So these are some of the issues that we've been observing in those areas, and we would have discussed with the stakeholders.
Mr. Spencer said penalties would be put in place for those who go against the policies. He explained why he couldn't give a timeline for when the jet ski policy would be implemented.
I would not be able to give you a specific date because that public consultation must be done. So immediately after the public consultation is done and we gather all the data, then the entire policy now must be approved by the Executive Council. Then I will be able to give you definite dates as to the implementation.
Jet ski rides are offered on beaches such as Store Bay, Pigeon Point and Buku Bay in Tobago. I'm Patricia Nicholson for C News.
Sport now, several employees from the Sport Company of Trinidad and Tobago have been sent home in order to facilitate a forensic audit of the establishment. A release stated that the Board of Directors of the Sports Company of Trinidad and Tobago Limited, acting on the advice of the Ministry of the Attorney General and Legal Affairs, has undertaken a forensic investigation into the operations of the company. To facilitate this investigation, 8 employees have been asked to proceed on administrative leave effective Wednesday, July 19th. The appointment of 1 member of the Board of Directors has also been revoked. It is believed law enforcement officials visited the facilities at the Attobolden Stadium and removed several items, including computers and other files. The curtains have been drawn on the Cricket West Indies Regional Under-17 tournament held over the last 8 days in Trinidad. The young men from TNT successfully defended the title in a competition that went into the final day where all matches were affected by rain, leaving Barbados to settle for second base on the points tally. Director of Cricket at CWI, Jimmy Adams, was pleased with the caliber of cricket he saw during the competition and encouraged the youngsters to follow through on their talents if cricket was what they wanted to do later in life.
People can say what they want about West Indies cricket, but the thing that gives me the most hope and encouragement is the fact that we have raw material in the Caribbean. And by raw material, I mean the quality of players that we have, certainly at the youth levels. It is my hope that many of you will go on to long and successful international careers, that you'll find the drive, the discipline and the courage to move on and go through the levels, first the under-19s and then hopefully to regional and international cricket. But use this as a stepping stone, and I hope for those of you who have gotten a taste for competing, that this tournament will go a long way towards making you want to go out and test yourself against the best in the region and then ultimately the best in the world.
It came as no surprise that Trinidad and Tobago copped the most awards after the tournament. Samir Ali, the leggy, copped the most wickets award, while wicketkeeper Leonardo Julian had the most dismissals. Rashawn Worrell of Barbados accumulated the most runs with 137, which included the only century of the tournament, while Avinash Mahabir Singh was the most valuable player of the tournament with his all-round capabilities. Coach of the TNT team, David Furlong, said this level of cricket is a good development tool and is vital for the growth of West Indies cricket.
It's a nice development step then, rather than go straight from under 15 to under 19. The tournament this year was a good tournament. Unfortunately, at the end this way with the rain on the last day, it being so competitive, but you're seeing young players there who could develop a lot. You're seeing a good future for West Indies cricket in some of these young players. When they go back, they do the proper things.
And that's it for sport. And that's the C News report at noon. Remember, for up-to-date and breaking news throughout the day, visit the C News website at ctvtt.com. I'm Stacey Ann Providence. Have a good afternoon.